We're good? Okay, welcome to our city council meeting for Wednesday, July 7th. We will get started tonight. We do have an invocation tonight. That'll be offered by, July 9th. I read that right, thank you. Wednesday the 9th. Amended on the 7th, Wednesday the 9th. We have an invocation tonight by Summer Gunderson, and then that will be followed by the pledge by Gabriel Jimenez. So, Summer?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that we can meet here together. Please bless us with empathy and respect for each other and the different situations that are going on in our community. Please help us to know how to best serve each other and to make our time useful to help all our children. Please bless us as Youth Council gather here today too, and we kick off the new year. Bless us with lots of energy and organization, so that we can best use our time. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Amen.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Summer and Gabriel. We'll go to item 1.2, City Council comments and recognitions. Anything from the council tonight?
I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to our first responders for the response on Saturday night, not only our PD, but Riverton PD, South Jordan Fire, UFA Fire, and all the other agencies that assisted, even the local utilities and our city employees that had to respond late in that evening. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
We all share, we all share the same sentiments.
I think we all share that. I've received numerous messages. It was truly miraculous what came out of that night, that we didn't have any fatalities that night. So thank you to these heroes that stepped in to help that night, to those that were working at Jimmy John's and notified everybody, but just beginning to end, we got lucky as a community, but we've got amazing people that serve, so thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 2, which is our public comment. Audience members may bring any item within the city's purview to the city council's attention. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. State law prohibits the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. Public comments for this meeting will also be conducted electronically. Any person interested in addressing the council may submit a comment by emailing recorder@harriman.gov or by visiting harriman.gov/agendas and minutes, where there is a link to fill out an online public comment form. Your statement will be incorporated into the public record. So I've got a couple forms tonight. We will start with Jonathan Whitworth.
Good afternoon. As a young citizen of Harriman, there's one issue that affects us more than any other. Polling has found that this is the number one issue for Utahns across the state. And this is the very issue that the City Council identified in Section 4, page 10 of the 2025 Harriman City General Amendment. This is the issue that will decide whether Utah is for Utahns or for only those outsiders wealthy enough to live here. Of course, I am talking about the issue of housing affordability and inaccessibility in Harriman for first-time home buyers and renters. As City Manager Nathan Trepesky said in Special City Council Agenda for 26th of March 2025 on page 13, the goal of 150,000 homes by 2028 seemed unrealistic given the current building rates and resource constraints. As a citizen of Harriman, I can concur with City Manager Trepesky. I have borne witness to development projects that have been started only for them to be abandoned for a long period of time, leaving it for pests to make their home instead of working class citizens. I will I will allow the next speaker to continue our statement.
Thank you, Jonathan. My next comment is Ezra Crane.
By the time construction finally continues after many delays, the pests that have made their home in the abandoned constructions scatter and invade nearby buildings. The example I'm referencing is the apartment building, supposedly under construction, right next to Lee's Marketplace alongside the Mountain View corridor. This apartment complex was supposed to be in operation alongside the opening of Lee's Marketplace, only for it to still be under construction 3 years after. Counselors, we cannot sit idly by as land wastes away unused for the profit of investment firms and while families are told to find somewhere else to live. My ancestors came here with handcarts, with no money to their name, fleeing a government that had ordered them to be killed. Imagine telling them that in just a few generations, their descendants would be forced to flee again, unable to buy a home and unable to start a life in Utah because some had decided that Utah was nothing more than a playground for rich Californians and coastal elites. I will allow the next speaker to continue our statement.
Okay, we'll go to Dominic Holmes.
This is an issue which is systemic and goes to the very heart of the cancer that is rotting our country from within. We cannot expect the city of Harriman to solve the fundamental problems facing America, but there is something that can be done right now. And this is something that our founding fathers proposed, something which both Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin advocated for. Counselors, as a representative of the American Communist Party, what we demand is a land value tax. What is a land value tax? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a form of tax specifically focused on the value of the land itself, excluding any improvements or developments made to the aforementioned land. A tax on undeveloped land that would encourage owners of that land, of the land in Harriman, to not simply sit on their land while the land value increases, but develop it as soon as possible so that they can make a return on their investment in the land. This is not us merely asserting what will happen with no basis, but one founded by President right here in the USA. I will allow the next speaker to continue our statement.
Okay, we'll go to Blythe Gallegos.
A land value tax has already been proven to work in other parts of the country. Areas in Pennsylvania with a land value tax have gone through growth and development, which non-land value tax areas have never experienced. But wouldn't the land value tax be paid out by the rentee of the property and not the owner of a property? Not so. A Danish study on municipalities which adopted a land value tax says the following. Land value tax does not distort economic decisions because it does not distort the user cost of land. Secondly, the full incidence of permanent land tax change lies on the owner at the announcement of the tax change. Future owners, even though they officially pay the recurrent taxes, are not affected as they are fully compensated via a corresponding change in the acquisition price of the asset. I will allow the next speaker to continue our statement.
Simon Dunn.
What is to be done with the taxes obtained from this land value tax? Easy. You distribute it as a dividend to home buyers in order to supplement the costs of buying a home. Something in the same vein of the Alaskan Permanent Fund, which is enshrined in their constitution. Affordable homes aren't just good for native Utahns, they're good for business. Affordable housing lowers costs of living, and those savings are passed on to Harriman's small businesses, who no longer have to make up the difference. With the increasing costs of housing, the pay raises of Harriman businesses don't go to the workers themselves, but instead are sucked up by the wealthy real estate conglomerates and bankers whose rent and mortgage revenue is often siphoned away from Utah to fund the lifestyles of coastal elites. I will allow the next speaker to continue our statement.
Daniel Quintana.
Counselors, you have a choice. Will Harriman become an economic stronghold and a future refuge for Utah's families? Or will parasitic landholders who would rather speculate than work force Harriman's youth to raise families elsewhere? Today we have shown you all a very simple solution to Harriman's housing issue, one which has been tested and succeeded to great extent in America already. A solution which one of our founding fathers believed in, saying, a small land tax will answer the purpose of the states and will be their most simple and most fit resource. Alexander Hamilton, Federalist Paper, number 36. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all the forms I have. Any other comments tonight? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to city council reports. We'll start with Jared.
We've made it through the UFA budget season, but now we move into, I've briefed you several times before about the Salt Lake County contribution to UFA operations for responses to the dedicated canyon recreation areas. That's an ongoing dispute they've entered into, for lack of a better term, mediation. So I expect to get a full report on that first meeting next week during the board meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Jared. Teddy?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Sherry?
I attended my first meeting of the Association of Municipal Councils, I believe it's what it's called. It was pretty cool. Just several people from different cities kind of had a round table. If there was an agenda, I'm not sure we stuck necessarily to the agenda. But one interesting thing that I would like to probably discuss a little bit further with staff is West Jordan, I believe, is going to a policy of no trees in park strips. We have an adamant trees in park strips, and they said because it's very substantial, the cost to the city to do sidewalk repairs once those trees start to mature. And so the stinky ones that are called flowering pears, I think, there's a ton, they look beautiful and they're terribly smell. I thought that they were called dogwoods at first because they smell like the other end of the dog. But regardless, apparently they're a very big offender of sidewalks, and we have a lot of those in our city. So maybe it's something we should take a look at, because I know that they've reversed that policy because of the problem with the cost that's associated with maintaining sidewalks. So just another task. Sorry. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. Tara, anything?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Thank you. And I don't have anything to report tonight either, so we will go to item 5. We'll start with 5.1, a report by Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District on a proposed property tax increase for water service purposes. Welcome, Councilmember Perucci.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It feels a little bit like deja vu. It is. I was here a month ago and I shared my perspective. Before we dive into, before I have Dave, who does fantastic work for the district, dive into the details, I did just want to echo Councilmember Hodges' perspective that he shared at the beginning of the meeting. Really appreciate the collaboration between a bunch of different governmental entities. As you guys know, my council district neighbors Harriman, and I was under evacuation, just like many of your residents were, my neighborhood and Teddy's neighborhood as well. And so I really, really appreciate the work of Harriman Police Department. Your staff was out until all hours of the night. I went out there when our comms director was briefing the media with one of your leaders in your police department. It was 1:30 in the morning, and it was a great perspective, just the work that city staff do and the sacrifices that they make. So really appreciate you guys' work. And the collaboration at all levels between us as electeds and, more importantly, between the staff level. So I shared my perspective as your representative on the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District Board of Trustees on the proposed property tax increase. What I said is my perspective, and it has not changed since that meeting. But I wanted to allow Dave, representing the district from a staff level, share the district's perspective so that you can hear all sides.
If you wouldn't mind, maybe repeat your perspective for those that are in the audience for this council member who wasn't here on the last one and the many that are be watching this meeting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from my perspective, I was the only member of the Board of Trustees that voted against the budget. I'm not comfortable with the property tax as described without seeing additional cuts. The district staff did a great job of paring back the budget, but I felt like there was more opportunities to bring some cuts to bear. And given the types of projects that are being discussed, I feel like there are ways that we can tighten the belt and not ask residents to pay more money. And it doesn't seem like a ton when taken as a standalone property tax increase, but I recognize, and I know that you do as electeds, that there are a lot of increases that residents are asked to bear from a lot of different levels of government, and at some point we need to say no, not at this time, and let's look at other options. And so that's my perspective. Again, I'm one member of the Board of Trustees, and so happy to answer questions before I hand it over.
I appreciate that because people probably don't realize that you are the representative for Harriman, Riverton, and Bluffdale.
Yeah, which frankly, I mean, I'm grateful for the opportunity to represent it. I wish that the state had a different structure. I think it's unfortunate that I represent people that don't elect me to represent them and have a decision in a property tax and raising that property tax. I think the structure is not what is considered the best level of accountability. So, I mean, I love Harriman, love representing you guys, love representing Riverton. I'm only elected by one district in Riverton, not even the whole city. Yeah, I represent all of Riverton. And before we did a boundary adjustment, I also represented Bluffdale on the Water District Board of Trustees. And I have philosophical issues with that structure, but I can't change it.
I just thought my colleagues I know kind of roll their eyes sometimes when I do this, and you'll get my standard thing with property taxes again. But most of the time, the public that are paying attention to this meeting are unaware of those things. So I was just
we pay a lot of different property taxes to a lot of entities, to water districts, to the school board, to police and fire districts, to cities, to the county, et cetera, et cetera. So
to libraries.
The libraries, the mosquito abatement district. And as your representative and as your representative on this district, my commitment is, and it has been since day one, is to ask hard questions. And I really respect the people that I get to work with at the water board, and they're incredible professionals, and we come at things with a different perspective. But I feel very comfortable knowing that my perspective at the very least reflects the views of our part of the county.
Okay. Thanks.
I think Jared hit that on the head to hear your point of view on that, but also anytime we have a taxing or taxing entity, we take that under extreme advisement and look at all angles of it. So thanks for your perspective on that.
Yeah, for sure. If you don't have any other questions.
I would just say you can do deja vu anytime because you're our rep. And so anytime you come and report to us, it's appreciated just to have that feedback. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And likewise, if you guys ever want me to come outside of when we're talking about the budget, I'd love to. I'm happy to report. I want to represent you guys as I want to have a tight relationship. And me and the mayor talk pretty often about what the city is looking for, and I report back pretty regularly, especially when there's something that I feel like is important for you guys to know about. But I appreciate this relationship.
Thank you, Andy.
Without further ado,
Dave, we'll welcome you up. Come
Dave.
on up. Thank you for being here, Dave.
Thank you. I'm Dave Martin, Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District CFO and Treasurer and Harriman resident. So it's always good to come to my city and speak to you. So as part of the Jordan Valley Water's budget, it does include a property tax increase, which is why we're here. We're required to report to you on that. In your packet is the full budget, and I've brought a handout which you should have, which is a one-page summary of just the property tax increase that's part of the budget. As you know, Jordan Valley's boundaries include all of our member agencies, including Harriman, and it's a growing area. And to provide water and develop future sources, it's needed to budget for and fund capital projects. An example is today a $100 million project was approved to expand the treatment plant that's here in Harriman. That'll take place over the next 4 years. But to fund that takes bonding. We issued a $100 million bond last year, and we have a plan for another $120 million bond in 2027. So this increases the debt service that needs to be paid back for those bonds. And so part of the budget for this fiscal year, the 2025-26 fiscal year, does include, it includes a water rate increase, which we do every year. We had an average 4.9% water rate increase. However, this year it also includes a tax rate increase, the amount being $3.1 million, which is an 11% tax increase. For an average home value in our service area, which is $630,000, it would be $11.78 per year increase in the tax. And then that goes to fund the operations and the debt service that goes and repays the bonds that then fund the projects that have developed the water. I'm happy to discuss any other parts of our budget, but that's the summary of what the tax, how much it is, and what's the purpose for it.
Dave, the question I have is,
yeah,
that was brought up by Board Member Perucci. And a few years ago, I know one of the senators opened a bill file to maybe decide to take away the ability for you guys to do property tax. And instead, it was kind of whittled down to a study to say, show me what percentage is realistic, how much it's a property tax, how much of that benefit is actually for the general public. And it's my understanding it's lower than what your actual property tax increase is. Is that correct?
Does
that make sense?
Which?
Sorry, maybe Andy can.
I think what Councilmember Oren is referring to is the public benefit of the water that's provided by the district, and that percentage of that of the budget compared to how much is collected in property taxes overall. And so I think that study that confirmed that about $20 million is the overall public benefit of the water that's provided through the district, and the property tax value that we bring in as a district is around $30 million right now, and then with this increase, it'll be around $33 million. So about $13 million above the public benefit of water.
Correct.
Yes.
So my concern with that is I see the legislation continue to go to where it'll limit your ability to do that. It seems like that was the intent of the study, to make sure that your property taxing ability was in harmony with the actual public benefit. And so if you're $13 million over the public benefit, it's concerning to me that the district would become dependent on that money to pay off bonds if the legislature is going to take that away from you when you can't show a public benefit. Because when I served on the board, that was the reason why you had the taxing ability, was because of the public benefit. That's why everybody had to pay it. It seems like then you have to start making that shift to where those come out in rates rather than through taxing, because at some point then it looks like heavy subsidization by the public for just a localized water use. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I would share that concern that feels like for instance, the legislature made a rule a while back that said we had to get rid of our crack addiction. We couldn't use our one-time money for certain things. We had to pull it out of our budget. And it was a big adjustment for us, but a good adjustment, but it's been very difficult. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's the next legislation you see is that. And so I would just be concerned and cautious about continuing these rate increases for taxes if that's the direction they're going to go. And my guess is that's on their radar if they did the study.
Yeah, the state did a study. They released that study, I think, last fall. They're still looking at that. I'm sure future bills will be introduced for that. Jordan Valley, as it sets its budget every year, we look at the need for a water rate increase, which we do each year. The 10-year financial plan that we project does include 2 other potential tax increases. So 2 of the next 10 could have a tax increase as well. So we don't plan to do it every year. It's as these projects come online and the need is there, it's necessary to generate some revenue to fund a budget. But as a district grows, as you're funding projects that are needed to produce water for future users, the projects need to be built in advance of any water that might be produced from those projects, and so property tax has been a benefit for a water district. It's a stable source of revenue. It complements the bonding that we do. The rating agencies have given Jordan Valley a AA+ bond rating, which means lower interest rates when we repay those bonds. Our projection is as we reach build out and those large projects have been funded, the needs for a property tax increase would decrease, and rates would water rates would fund future after we reach a build out point.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the difficult position you're in. You guys are in a rough spot, because when you say reach build out, I don't know if the state understands what that even means. So, and then they keep asking you to produce more water. So, and it's not like you can build them in a year. So, no. 100% understand the reasoning behind it. I just become very concerned about, and then they take that away, and then all of a sudden your bond rating dips down, your interest rates go up, and then the rate to your customers is going to skyrocket.
Right.
I always have a lot. Yeah. When it comes to these sorts of things, I'll do my best to condense it. So, Sherry, thank you very much, because that answered one of my main questions. One, why property tax versus usage fees? Right? I'm very troubled by actually the opening statement you made that the property tax is used for both operations and debt service, right? If your subsequent comments that property tax is a stable source of income that helps with bond ratings, totally understand that. It should not be used for operations, right? If we're talking about funding those projects, all the things you just talked about, those are projects that fall into that side of financing. It should absolutely, and Andy, I would ask that you push for these things on your side as well. We've done them here with our city, with PD. I'm pushing for the same sorts of reforms as the finance chair at Unified Fire Authority, that funds are separated, segregated for specific purposes. The fact that it's used for operations is incredibly troubling, right? If the primary purpose is to fund those projects for bonding, like that makes sense for property taxes. Having it be commensurate with the public benefit, that $13 million difference, I'm pretty sure if I dig into this budget, as I have with UPD, with UFA, UFSA, et cetera, I'm pretty sure that $13 million is going to be operations, right? And that's where the bulge is and where the cuts should be, right? Going to the one-time funds and using specific funding sources for the appropriate purposes. Does that make sense? So that would be kind of my main point overall. I know Sherry has spoken to those things as our representative. That's my feedback to you, that should be one of the first things, similar to impact fees being separated, the building permit fees being separated. You're only charging those things for those purposes. There's it looks like a pretty large amount of government waste, right, that the taxpayers are burdening. But that goes to my first question of why a property tax increase when this is a usage, right? I think user fees, if there's a need for operations, right? Inflation is a fact of life. If planned for properly, right? You can plan for those things over a period of time, and government is not good at that. But that's where that should come on, is the operations side, and go through usage fees, not property tax increases. So that's kind of a main point off the top. Then going to the actual amounts, I actually have this same sheet from the last property tax increase. And very, very similar data, very similar, and this is common for, and this isn't criticizing you or the water district necessarily, but it's kind of all of our local government and taxing entities have this same sort of approach and attitude that, well, we can't go to the taxpayers every year. We've got to time it where it's kind of an off election year, right? Where it's not like the major elections for most people, and we can ask for some more money. And it's generally about the same amounts every time, because we know the public has digested that before. So I want to give you just a couple of numbers. I really get irritated. I had a Russian soccer coach who used to say when we made him mad, he'd say, "You boil my blood." It kind of boils my blood when the attitude from agencies like this are that it's not very much. It's only $8. It's only $12. And this is where my colleagues will roll their eyes a little bit because they've seen me do this a million times. They'll see me do it again as we talk about our PD tax rate here this next month. But I keep this handy. These are my actual property taxes for each year that I've lived in Harriman from 2009 to now. And for Harriman City, we have 3 taxes that we have direct input on. The rest of them we don't. Most people think that their property taxes go to the city. They don't. Harriman City, so my property tax this year, or this previous year, was just under $7,200. That's $600 a month on my, basically goes on my mortgage payment, right? That's now increased to represent a third of what my mortgage payment is, so adding 30% to my actual payment. So we talk about cost of living, housing costs. Property taxes are one of the main culprits for the increase of the cost of living.
Especially if you're living on a fixed income.
Yeah, so when I moved here in 2009, same house, and for those watching, the way property taxes work, the amount that you pay does not go up with the value of your home. There's not a percentage and you times it by the value of your home. When you set a property tax rate, it's a dollar amount back that we convert back to a percentage, right? And then that entity cannot collect more than that dollar amount from me again, unless they come through this process and go through truth and taxation and reset the dollar amount, which then resets the percentage rate. So as the value of your home goes up and down, the amount you pay stays relatively stable. It stays the same. So when you look at I'm about to give you some eye-popping numbers. The increase in my property tax is not due to the value of my home. It's due to each of these taxing agencies coming in and taking more money from me, right? So in 2009, my total property tax was $3,700 for the year. It's now $7,200, right? In 2009, Harriman City received about $100 of my $3,700. Today, it receives $119 due to an equalization factor. Harriman City's never increased the property tax. Today, of that $119 to Harriman City, Salt Lake County Library gets $200 or almost $300, $290. Harriman City, $119 of my $7,200. The county library system, $300. Right? The school district is half. My main point is that very little we do what we can to control things here, and we've done a very good job of it. It's all of the others is where your property tax goes: school district, county, water, etc. And each of them uses this same rationale. It's only this much per household, but only for their one line item, right? So it's only $12, but times that by every agency, and we go from $3,700 to $7,200, right? My actual mortgage payment hasn't changed. That payment's static, but the property tax I'm paying have well outpaced inflation, Because rather than looking for changes within, yep, there's $13 million difference there in operations. We need to look at operations first before we go ask people for more money.
And to clarify, the total amount of the increase is actually 3 million. So the 13 million delta is the difference between.
I'm saying that's
yeah,
the
yeah. But I just wanted to clarify, just to give that
the increase. The increase this year is 3 million. I'm saying that the difference between the study that was done, the
Yes.
public good of the property tax was 20 million.
And I just wanted to clarify that to show that I feel like we could have found 3 million in cuts to not do that.
To not
That's
do
an
this
easier
year.
find
Yeah.
than 13 million even.
And I agree with Sherry. The direction this is going is that eventually there'll be, I'll say they, it's not you, Dave. eventually they'll be forced to do the same thing and shift those operational revenues to that side of the ledger. That's the way it really should be. When we're talking about the sources of revenue. Yep, you do have to have a source of revenue, as you stated. In your case, there's property tax, which for all the reasons you stated, I agree with, right? You need to bond to get a larger amount of money to complete projects. You can't pay a contractor piecemeal each year. You've got to get the lump sum. In order for somebody to lend you that money, you have to show that you have stable income, just like going to get to get a loan for a car or a house. You have to show you have that stable income. That's what property taxes provide versus the usage, right? That there's a lot of variation there. It really should separate that in the financial planning part of this, right? And that would really keep the property tax increases much more in line with the actual public good and what it's needed for, rather than what I call the government bloat, right, of spilling over operations into property taxes. And especially in a system like this, with this particular agency where there isn't direct representation. I'm coming from, for those that are watching that are getting bored by what I'm telling you, my perspective is that I focused, my profession is as a certified financial planner, I focused on the city's finances and the things that we directly control, which we've done a good job of making these reforms. I've represented the city for UPD. I blew that one up and we got out of it because they refused to do these things. We did the same thing with UFSA. UFA is a great service provider. They're working with us. They've asked me to be the finance chair, and they're making some of these changes, and all in the name of having a high quality service that's sustainable. Because this isn't sustainable to keep coming back to the well. The well's pretty much dry now. When it comes to property taxes, people can't afford more and pay that unaffordable housing payment on top of it. So there's my kind of, I guess, soapbox on this part, and feedback is that I think those of us that see this and have dealt with it, there's going to be a much more concerted effort from the legislature point of view to make that change, right? Looking at that study and forcing that change if the agency isn't able to do it itself. My 2 cents.
Can I ask a question following up that? When was the public benefit study done? How old is it?
I did it last summer. It was an internal Jordan Valley study is all. Yeah, it wasn't. There was another study that the Division of Water Resources did statewide for property taxes used for districts.
Okay,
so
thank you.
I wasn't sure which study was being referred to, but.
Well, are the answers to both studies the same for our area?
They were different focuses. Mine was on public good of water and the cost of Jordan Valley's budgets that cover that. This is the state study that was done, was more general, global use of taxes for districts.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that study's been released, so I'm not sure where you could find it, but it's out there.
Sorry, one last point to kind of follow up with my train of thought there that I wrote down. You mentioned the 10-year plan. You plan on 2 more similar property taxes that goes along with kind of the history so far. Like I said, these agencies typically say, well, we've gotten that before. We can plan on doing it about every 3 years, is what we're seeing, and that's pretty troubling.
I agree, and I totally respect where the staff come from on this. And I had a conversation with Alan Packard, who runs the water district, after our meetings, and he made it really clear that is what's planned for in the budget, but the Board of Trustees has full discretion to push back and have a conversation. And so I did that this year, and I plan to continue to do that going forward, of having a conversation of let's not just automatically plan on property tax increases. I understand why we have to from a long, because we're talking about projects that, like today, the $100 million project we just talked about, I mean, we're not going to be seeing the benefits of that until possibly 2050. Like, none of us are going to be in our positions then. And so it's a long timeline. So from a budgeting perspective, they have to have that conversation at the staff level. But it does not mean it's going to be an automatic. It has historically meant that.
Well, that's why I directed
but
that back to you.
I'm pushing against that mindset.
Well, if there's anything that we can do to help you in that effort and speak to the other board members, we're happy to.
I appreciate that.
How does water conservation play to user rates in your long-term budgeting as well?
Use the property tax rates or the?
Well, the user rates or conservation of water.
The water rates?
Yeah, because obviously we want to use less water, and we're preparing to use less water, but.
That's a challenge too, as we remind users to conserve water and use less. There is a revenue need as well, so there's a balance there, and that's always been a challenge for the water district. And so when we have a water rate consultant that updates the water rates each year and calculates the revenue requirement, and that's what determines the size of the water rate adjustment. And that's used to then fund the overall budget of the water district, to fund the operations, the maintenance of the system, the reserves, the repayment of debt.
And I know you guys already know this, but just for your residents' awareness, like the rates that the district charges to member agencies like Harriman City, it's not the rate that your residents pay. You guys then set your own rates, and you would make a policy decision as a body to determine what you want your residents to pay. So like in Riverton, we actually need to raise our rates because we haven't raised them in over 10 years, and the cost of delivering that water has not matched that cost that we've been charging residents. And so we're actually going through a rate study right now to determine what makes sense, which we haven't done in a decade. And so each member agency has to go through that process. I will, though, say that, when you're talking about rates versus property taxes, nonprofits don't pay property taxes, and schools don't pay property taxes.
But they sure do use a lot of water.
They do, and they pay water rates. And so there's an equity when it comes to who's paying and using that rates. Personally, I'm not speaking on behalf of the district, but as your representative, my personal opinion is there's more equity in payment when it comes to rates versus property taxes.
Yeah, so I mean, to further that point, when we talk about the two separate revenue sources and the operations and supplying the drop of water to the tap versus the projects, right? So you're using property taxes for projects, but you have those entities. Churches, schools are probably the biggest ones and biggest users. So while they might be paying a usage rate, they're not paying in my opinion, their share of the property tax for the projects, right? And that's a big problem as well. But then you're also, say that $13 million delta, which this is just me looking at it from, and I'm generally pretty close on this when I skim through a budget, that adding the $13 million delta being probably mainly operating costs, especially when you couple it with the study, that's a big problem, right? Because you're using sources to pay for projects that aren't equivalent, right? So it's a big subsidization from one set of taxpayers versus other taxpayers and users. So that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
One other just quick factoid for those in the audience. Jordan Valley Water, 2009, I paid $107 of that property tax, and today it's double that, $208. So these little increases, they're not little, and if you calculate it out, it's much higher than inflation.
I will give one compliment, though, to the district, that I do appreciate the rate studies. I believe 100% that Harriman should be paying what it costs to bring water to Harriman. And you guys do an excellent job of separating those things out. You talked about a 4.9% overall rate increase. I'm sorry, I don't have my thing in front of me right now, but Harriman sometimes pays that a little more, sometimes a lot less. It just depends on what it's costing to service our area at the time. So really appreciate that we are paying what it costs to service our community, not subsidizing other communities. So good job on that.
And I do want to point out, I mentioned this when I came to you guys a month ago, but Harriman will actually see a rate decrease compared to other member agencies. You're one of the few that's going to have a decrease. And that to your point, Sherry, like Councilmember Orn, the staff at the district are second to none when it comes to professionalism. They're constantly pushed to be the voices pulling these studies because they are experts when it comes to these topics. And I hope that my comments don't reflect negatively on the staff. It's just a difference of philosophical opinion and as a representative.
To be clear, I'm not necessarily picking on the staff either, because it is the board who makes these decisions. As we talk about these things, and whether my colleagues agree with me or not, I feel that our main responsibility is the budget, is to represent the taxpayers. That's why every budget amendment, every financial decision has to come back to our approval. Staff's job is to tell us what they think and what the situation is as they see it, and then ask our opinion on the policy. So that's why I separated the two, and I said, Andy, this is a policy part of it, right? That you can work with the board members to help the staff. Right now, it operates the way it operates, and staff doesn't really change that without the board. No. So yeah, it is kind of that dual function that needs to work together.
Yeah, I would echo the same as far as top-notch staff at the district. Very excellent people and very professional in the way they approach things.
Dave, thank you for being here. Andy, Councilmember Perucci.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for being
Thank you,
here.
Council.
Appreciate your work and partnership, so thank you. Okay, we'll go to item 5.2, Youth Council Legacy Projects Presentation. Jackie.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Our 2024-2025 Youth Council, one of the requirements is that they actually have to do a legacy report to benefit the community. And we do have a presentation from a group, Kulan, Cassidy, Gabriel, Sophia, and Summer.
Good afternoon.
Hey, my name is Summer. This is Hulan, Gabriel, Sophia, Cassidy, and our project was called For the Fathers. Oh, thank you.
For our ideas, at first we wanted to support families, kids, and the mental health community, but we didn't know how to combine all those into one project, and so we struggled a little bit with that.
So some conflicts that we faced. So we're all very busy high schoolers, so trying to get together was a bit of an issue. But ultimately we decided that we only wanted to do one day for our project, just with schedules and stuff. And then we decided, after many months of going back and forth between different options for different projects, we eventually decided to do babysitting for different families, and due to the date it fell around, we decided to do a Father's Day event, so that way parents could go and get a break and relax and just have their children gone for a few hours.
So we agreed on what we want to do, and since our first idea was to help the community and also help with mental health, we thought helping parents will give them a break and make an impact on their mental health, since they're getting break from watching the kids. And yeah.
Okay, for advertising and reaching out, we made this flyer to make it very accessible, but in order to keep the children safe and for our safety, we made a registration system through Google Forms, so that way only families who signed up would have the address and more details about it. We put this all over social media, we texted our friends one by one, just everywhere we could, and it was pretty successful.
So we ended up getting like 6 kids, and Cassidy was very kind and let us do it at her house. Yeah. And we kept reaching out and stuff, and we got the people that we wanted to be involved with this project. Something that we decided to implement was having like stations and stuff while we were running the event. And basically this allowed us to focus on the kids individually rather than just like, oh, let's put 6 kids in a room and just like figure it out, you know? So we had like kids like doing like crafts or, you know, playing with blocks, and some of the boys really loved Cassidy's cars that she had. Or we like played outside and took them outside to her playground and stuff. And that way we were able to give like individual attention to kids and rather, you know, not just like generalize it and stuff. And we were also able to provide them a meal, so we got them pizza and lemonade. And yeah, I think we did a pretty good job of planning and executing this project.
These are just some pictures that we took at the event. As you can see, there's like a bunch of blocks, chalk, and the lemonade that we made for them, which they loved a lot. And there's also a picture of all the things that the kids drew on my driveway. Oh, and we also had a card making station so that all the kids could make a letter for their dad since it was Father's Day weekend. And then here's a picture of us together at my house after we took care of him.
So I think it was very successful because Harriman is definitely a city where very family-centered city and stuff. There's tons of, you know, the majority of the demographic is families, I would say. And I can attest to this, that my parents specifically sacrificed a ton to raise me and my sister and give us opportunities that we do get. And I know that if my parents do it, that a ton of other parents are doing it. So it's just really made me grateful to be able to give this opportunity to parents to, you know, have a moment to have a break and just, you know, go do something that was just them to help, you know, strengthen their relationships and help strengthen their mental health. So I was really glad that we were able to give this this opportunity to parents in Harriman.
Okay, in conclusion, it was really hard to make this project. We actually started brainstorming in November last year, and so it took us a while to make it to this point. But to give it a lasting impact, we made sure all the parents have our contact information, and they can do this again in the future if they need. But we really just wanted a way to combine our different ideas, to focus on families, to focus on empathy, on children and youth, and to focus on how everybody is feeling. And so we were really happy with how it turned out. We always wish we could have done like a month-long service project or something big and crazy, but I think it's the little things that add up and make our lives better. And so that's all. Thanks for listening to us.
Great job.
That's the only presentation we have tonight.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good work, you guys. Okay, we'll move on to 5.3, our Youth Council Oath of Office. So Jackie, you're going to conduct that as well?
Yeah, so we're going to do a quick introduction of the youth council members that are here, and then do the oath of office for the 25-26 Youth Council. Just when you hear your name, if you wouldn't mind coming up and getting the oath of office from me. Abigail. Adam. Addison. Caden. Yeah, come on up.
It's July.
Cassidy. Connor. Eli. Elise Hall. Which one? Cassidy. Okay. Gabriel. I don't know if he's here. Hayden. Katie. Kennedy, Coulon, Kennedy, Carter, Luke, Madison, Sadie, Sadie Miles, Sadie Brass, Sage, Sophia, Summer, Sydney, and Violet. Okay. I just want to express my appreciation for your guys' interest in wanting to serve the community. We are going to go ahead and just go with the oath of office. If you'll just raise your right hand after me. State your name. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. That I will support, obey, and defend. I will support, obey, and defend. The Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of Utah. And that I will discharge. I will discharge. The duties of my office. The duties of my office. With fidelity. With fidelity. Congratulations.
Three, two, one, zero. Okay. All right. Yeah, I have 0.5 to, as they say. All right, 3, 2, 1, 0. Photos?
I know you're all leaving, but thank you for your willingness to serve this year. We look forward to working with you for a year, another year, Gabriel. Okay, we'll move to item 6.1. We have a public hearing tonight on a proposal to vacate a portion of a public street right-of-way near the terminus of Juniper Crest Road at approximately 15250 South, 3750 West. Blake.
See here. So this is the location you just defined there, just at the end of Juniper Crest Road. This is the last connection between Mountain View Corridor and Juniper Crest. And so the proposal is to vacate the right-of-way, and here's some of the reasons why. It was dedicated to Harriman City by plat a little bit over 12 years ago, and when this shape was laid out and dedicated, it was done without any roads or houses in that area. It was pretty undeveloped in that location. And so they just designed a 90-degree bend. And as things have built out and developed and they've moved earth, they've determined that The 90-degree bend is not very functional. It's expensive to build, and our traffic patterns aren't very supported by that. So a curved alignment's preferred. And, I have some exhibits here that show that. So the green shows the new curved alignment on this map. The red's the old alignment. So the green would be property coming to the city, and the red would be property that the city would be vacating. And then it would then be developed. The master developer does propose to do that curved alignment, and we've been working with the Mountain View Corridor team, and we've also been designing the crossing for Mountain View Corridor to widen that and put signals in. This location, Mountain View Corridor, will go over the surface road, so we've been coordinating that tie-in for the last couple of last year or so, trying to make sure that we're hitting the elevations and tying in properly. So public notices were sent out with the 10-day required notice to 300 feet within the affected property. That included, I think, 4 property owners total on this whole site. And there's another item later on this council agenda. So staff's recommendation on this is to have the public hearing, consider any comments, and then continue this item and not make a determination on it until item 8.2 has been heard and there's a determination on that item, and then move forward with this. I'll be happy to answer any questions or hold the public hearing if there aren't any questions.
So let's just do the public hearing, and then we'll do the motion to move it back. Okay, so at this time we will open the public hearing. I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So I'll look for a motion to continue it at this point till after. Do we want to do a motion there, Jackie? Or do we just want to hold the motion? Do we need to make the motion to continue it? Okay, so we need to make a motion to continue it until after 8.2.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we'll go Jared.
Yes.
Teddy.
Yes.
Sherry.
Yes.
Tara.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. We'll come back to that after 8.2. Thank you, Blake. Okay, we'll move to item 7. Look for a motion on the consent agenda.
Everybody look at Tara. So
that's where the...
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda as written.
Second.
Inclusion, sorry.
Oh, to discuss the...
With the inclusion.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's corrected. Motion to approve the consent agenda as written, including with the inclusion of approving the minutes of May 28, 2025 and June 11, 2025 as corrected.
Perfect.
Second.
Motion by Teddy, second by Sherry. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. We'll go to item 8.1, consideration to award the construction contract for Wide Hollow Trailhead. Bryce?
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. We have a construction project to talk about tonight. So this is the Wide Hollow Trailhead. It has a history of us trying to get to the finish line on this project, and we have some good news tonight on the bidding results. But yeah, Wide Hollow Trailhead, this is up kind of near the cove. It's kind of the flip side to our Black Ridge Trailhead, where those trails kind of come together and meet up. And so this is on the other side of the hill there, up near, it's about 6600 west and kind of up in the southwest corner of the city. So here's a little bit overview of the project. So there's about 70 parking stalls in this parking lot. That is, if everything, was parked perfectly. We understand that in reality, it might be less than that as people park. There is a space or two for trailer parking as well for those that have a desire for equestrian use. The we did kind of have to cut back on some of the amenities or some of the costs from, as many of you know, we actually bid this out 3 years ago and it came in over budget, so we weren't able to bid it at that time. So we redesigned it to be a little bit more efficient with our money and to be able to make sure that we came within budget. So one of the cool features that is included with this is a staircase challenge. So you can kind of see there, the blue's the trail that kind of does the switchbacks up the mountain. But this staircase will be straight up the mountain, and 258 timber steps, so wooden steps that you can go straight up the mountain. So it'll be kind of a fitness challenge, kind of a cool feature for our community. There's some other communities like Denver and St. George that have similar amenity like this staircase challenge. And like I pointed out there, it's over 150 foot elevation gain in 258 steps. So it will be a challenge.
Width on that?
I think they're 10-foot wide steps, so it should enable both up and down as needed. Yeah. One of the big cost savings is that we converted from a paved parking lot to a recycled asphalt or asphalt millings parking lot. So if you've been out to the Butterfield Canyon Trailhead, that is similar asphalt millings trailhead. Also in Hidden Oaks, we did a mini little trailhead parking lot with those asphalt millings. And the nice thing is that with our asphalt maintenance projects this year, there are a few mill and overlay projects that we're actually pulling. We're milling down 2 inches of our asphalt, and we're going to take that to our public works yard and then reuse it for this project. So we're not having to pay for the asphalt milling, so we're essentially recycling it the same year we're pulling it off. So with that said, kind of talk about where the bids came in. So our total budget, and we have a grant from the TRCC program through the county, that with that combined with our park impact fee, a total budget of 1.6 million, just over 1.6 million. And the bids came in very favorably, very competitively. You can see the bottom 3 bids were all very close, which is a good sign for us. That means that hopefully the bidders didn't miss anything. Everyone's kind of seeing the same kind of atmosphere as far as bidding goes. We got a lot of interest in the project. You can see we had many bidders on the project. And so with that, there's the construction cost, but there's also the design cost, which we've spent most of that already to get us to the point where we could bid it out. There is a little bit of keeping the designer on through construction just for coordination or if questions come up. And so with the low bidder, Strong Solutions, and with the designer, Bowen Collins, we have a pretty healthy budget and contingency. And you can see there about 30% of our budget is still available to move if we move forward with the construction contract. And so our recommendation is to move forward with the low bidder. We have done a evaluation of this contractor. They've actually won 3 bids in the city now, so we will be seeing them a lot. The Main Street median is one of, not the Main Street median, City Hall landscape in front of the front door here, and then some of the detention pond retrofitting that'll allow for more efficient water treatment. And so, yeah, we recommend moving forward with this contractor. There is, because the bid came in low, we do have an additional recommendation. The first recommendation is award the construction contract as shown here to Strong Solutions. Because the bids came in lower, one of the features or the amenities that was not included in this was a restroom. And so because the bids came in lower, we are recommending kind of future-proof the trailhead with utilities stub and a pad created for the restroom, so that when we do install the restroom in a future phase, we don't have to rip up the parking lot. It's all stubbed, and now we've moved to a precast restroom, so it's literally, we order the restroom, they come drop it into place. There's a little bit of work of connecting the plumbing and the electrical, but it's seamless, right? And so we will be coming forth with another change order to incorporate some of that. The water line is a kind of a separate need from our water department that connects our water system from the cove over to East Ridge. It's an 8-inch main. And so that is a need for redundancy. It allows us, if there's any emergency or water leak, to be able to continue to feed both subdivisions from either side. So it allows for emergency redundancy. It's more efficient for our system and pressures. And so we are also recommending that 8-inch line go through. That would be from a separate fund. Like we discussed, the project is funded through park impact fees and through a grant. This would have to come from the water fund, and it's estimated at $80,000 to install that water line. Like I said, it's much more efficient if we do that now before all of the parking lot and infrastructure is installed. You can see a connection down there to the East Ridge subdivision that it would go through. And then also like I was mentioning, the utilities and pad for the future restroom is approximately $80,000 as well. So we're recommending, and we'll bring forth that for a budget amendment if the direction is to move forward with that change order, because we would have to budget that $80,000 from the water enterprise fund to build the water line. The $80,000 for the utilities for the restroom can just come from the project contingency budget. And if we did incorporate that, the remaining contingency for the project would be just over $400,000 or 25% of our budget. The last thing is question, why don't we just install the restroom while we're here and doing it? So that is a possibility. We would like to maintain that 25% contingency throughout the project. They are going to be digging into a mountainside. There's potential maybe they run into rock that might need to have a little bit more costly excavation that could become a change order. But if we get to the end of the project and there is, we still have sufficient contingency, then we would like to come back to council and at that point and discuss maybe we can order the restroom with the project budget and install it at a later time.
We hope that they plan to run into rock because it is Harriman.
Yeah, and this is kind of excessive rock that would require, more than your average excavation, maybe blasting or something of that sort. Hopefully that's not the case. We're all hoping not, but that's just something to keep in mind. We would like to keep that contingency to the end of the project, and then if we don't end up using it, maybe that's a possibility. We can order the restroom and get it coming to the site.
What's that cost for the CXTs?
So this would just be a 2-stall. We've had 4 stalls, but the 2-stall estimated with we add radiant heating in the floor to keep it through the winter open. And that, with all of that, it's about $150,000 added. So if we do the $80,000 now, it would just be an additional $150,000 at the end.
So pray for no boulders.
Yes, and we do want some boulders because you can actually see on this plan, that's how we're kind of lining the outside of the parking lot. So we bid it with a contingency that if they have to buy boulders versus if they reuse boulders on site. So we want some, but not massive ones that they can't easily remove.
Perfect. It's the new architectural feature, right?
Yeah, with that, I can answer any questions.
Any impact to the surrounding lots?
So yeah, actually there is a benefit to the lots immediately downhill of this site. You can see them in there where you're installing a drainage system at the bottom of the trailhead there. So that's what those are manholes, perforated manholes, and then there's a channel and a storm drain connection that'll take it out to our storm drain system. So so there's a benefit in the fact that we're going to be catching the storm water that comes off the mountain now that isn't there today. Obviously, there's the impact of them having people in their backyard, that is just, we open it up a little bit more to public, but that use is there today. there's kind of an impromptu trailhead there today that we found from the neighbors at the cul-de-sac just to the left side of this picture. The few that we've talked to are excited for this project to get those people off of their kind of, frontages and their property off the road and into a secure parking lot. So, yeah, I mean, we did, like I said, in 2022, we went through a lot of the public involvement process. There was some concern with introducing new people to a neighborhood, right, with any amenity that we install. Like I mentioned, we've tried to mitigate, major impacts to anyone in the area, but there will maybe an increase of traffic down the road now that there's a official parking lot there.
Can I just add something?
Yes, please.
We've been working on this trailhead for a very long time. And Nathan challenged us and held our feet to the fire, and we got it down and well below budget. And I've wanted this challenge staircase, even though I won't climb it myself. I've wanted it for like 7 years. So I am super excited about it and thank Bryce and his team for all the work they've done on it. John Dunley was a big part of that. And then Salt Lake County also provided us an extension as we kind of work through our budget issues, which is we're really grateful for that.
Yep.
Awesome. This will be cool. For anybody who really wants to activities.
You want to do it. Okay. Any other discussion, or I'll look for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve to award the contract for the Wide Hollow Trailhead project to Strong Solutions.
Second.
Motion by Sherry, second by Jared. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Thank you, Bryce. Okay, now we'll go to 8.2, discussion and consideration of an amendment to the Panorama Master Development Agreement regarding naming of the dog park portion of the Panorama Park.
Time for the presentation. There we go. Okay, so this would be the first amendment, proposed amendment to the Panorama MDA. Same location as the previous item I presented on, the road. And so this image just shows the shape of the proposed dog park portion of Panorama Park. This amendment is a developer-initiated amendment. The property owner for this area is one of the owners listed in the Master Development Agreement, and Innovative Excavating and Construction LLC is their name, and they would like to be able to name the dog park. And this is also tied to, this is why we held the other item out until now, is tied to the Juniper Crest right-of-way, the portion that the city would be getting. This image on the left, I took the last image and turned it so north is more to the left instead of straight up and down. You can see the proposed dog park plan below and how it fits in with the shape. And so this is the language right here. Some of the key portions of this are that the city council may, in its sole discretion, approve or reject the proposed name. And if the city council rejects the name, the Innovative may submit more alternative names until we get one that the city council is okay with. So with that, the representatives for the master developer are here if you have questions to ask them. If not, I can try to answer any other questions that you may have.
I think one of the reasons is in a public meeting is that it's part of an agreement that was just done. Remind me when we just passed this MDA a few short months ago.
It would have been November of 2024.
Yeah, so it's pretty frustrating that only a few months have gone by, and this was one of the major components that we already have to come back and ask for an amendment. I'm going to ask you to state the reasons why, right? That's a big part of this and the public process. But one, right, we just went through this this road is a huge part of it, part of that agreement from our side to protect our residents, et cetera, and not put more strain on the infrastructure in the road, is that no homes can be built in that area until this road is constructed. So we have done our due diligence through that process to kind of protect the residents from those impacts. So having said that, and it only being a few short months now, we're being asked to make an amendment fine for the road alignment. It wasn't caught in that process, probably should have been. But I have a really hard time with the reason why it's being tied to naming of a city facility. There's not a charitable donation. There's, as far as I can tell from the situation, there's nothing more than the situation where one of those 4 property owners wants to satisfy their desire to name a city property. We don't have any, as far as I know, we don't have any official policies on naming things. I think I'm the only, Sherry might have been here when the park was dedicated.
This one right here?
Yeah. Bit controversial with naming it after people. We've kind of talked loosely that, yeah, we're not okay with naming things after people. And to have, I feel like this is kind of extortion from one of those property owners to satisfy an egotistical need of theirs. I know that it might be the easy thing. This is what they've said, give me this and I'll sign off on this and you can go build your road. So it might be the easy thing, but it sure doesn't feel like the right thing. Please tell me if I'm misinformed, if it's a different situation with that, if anyone disagrees, but that's kind of the synopsis of what I'm seeing.
I don't think any of your statements are wrong or invalid, but I think that, I mean, I don't know this individual personally or spoken to him, but I think it's, I mean, any time, like if this is my property, a legacy, you know.
Yeah, but they're not donating it, they're being compensated. This isn't a charitable act that you would see for those types of things. If you want to, we've talked about doing sponsorships, right, with our parks, et cetera, to that those things can be satisfied through a sponsorship. So that's right. That's why I kind of prefaced it with, as far as I know, there's no charitable donation associated with this of, hey, we're going to give you, you know, X value of land in exchange for this, which you see with some public things. So I'm asking if I'm missing something and if there's any pertinent facts. I know it's what's being asked for and it's the easy route at the moment, but unless I'm missing something, yeah, it just doesn't, it feels wrong.
So they're not providing any amenities with the name. They're not helping provide the park. They're not paying for everything that's going into the park to trade off for naming it. They just want to name it.
As far as I understand, this is a requirement of the master development agreement, and where it's a requirement of the development, it doesn't count as a charitable contribution.
Right.
It's part of the project. The master developer is going to install the amenities with the PID that was approved for this project.
I guess my question was more just hypothetical to what you're saying. I could see they ask if they were saying, hey, we're going to exactly that, donate, we're going to put in all the amenities on this on our shoulders. It's not going to be part of the PID. It's not going to be layered over to the homeowners in the future as the PID. But I think
it just seems to me like there's one of the signatures needed, and they're saying, hey, if you want me to sign this, this is what I want.
As far as I understand, yes.
I'll just play devil's advocate a little bit, Jared, is they don't have to do this. They don't have to make this swap. They could force us to continue to go into the T in the road, right, which would, I think, messes up that does not great design in that area. So I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No, I've asked the question earnestly. This is what I'm seeing. Tell me.
Can we pull up that road? It's on your other slide.
Item 6.1.
Yeah, 6.1, sorry.
Unless that image is in this presentation.
I don't have it in this one, no.
So it would be item 6.1.
Because we're just talking about the north side of that property is where that road intersection changes, right?
But wasn't this property?
It's actually not this specific
It's in a different, okay.
property. It's the far left edge. It's right there. So-
Oh, right here where it says innovative. So a very tiny chunk of their property is necessary to make this change? or none
So
of it is
Innovative
necessary?
does own the parcel, much of the parcel that is the dog park. So it is owned by Innovative Excavating. I think the portion,
They're the current mining company currently? Is that?
they're currently mining some of this area with the permit that was approved last year by the state.
I guess I'm confused also, same as Jared is, why, how come all of a sudden this is it? Why is all of a sudden we need to name the dog park? This should have been discussed months ago. If this was part of the agreement, why wasn't this discussed as part of the agreement? Why are we now saying, we got to name a dog park? It's crazy to me.
What is the timing on this? If it goes as proposed, say this goes through, the timing is probably to what we suggested in the approval of the MDA. If we don't approve it tonight, what does that timing look like?
Might not be the best to answer that.
Yeah, I think we're outside of what staff knows as this request came to us, but the developer's representative is there.
Chase makes me look a lot shorter than I really am.
But Blake does have more hair than me.
Barely.
Wow.
We can.
Shots fired.
So the last question on the table, I think, was what is the effect, or what is the impact of the timing?
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, we have everything queued up with the Public Infrastructure District to get that funded, to get moving on the road. Once the property swaps happen, that new alignment will be now owned by the city, and we can begin working with you. We've already submitted plans to the city, but we obviously haven't had those finalized until, obviously, the property does swap. I'd love to tell you it's going to be X number of months, but the real impact is that it would just delay things. I don't know that it would be 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. It's probably more around that 6 to 9 month range. And that really depends upon what options the city explores. We're not the owner of any of that property that was up on the swap exhibit, right? We're the master developer. Under the agreement, we're obligated to build that road within a certain time frame. And we're committed to doing that with the acknowledgement that the city has to own the correct layout, right? Otherwise, it just doesn't work. And so it would be whatever time frame we can figure out and what other options are available to build in that location. As for the park, I share your frustration, Councilmember Orrin and Councilmember Henderson. I would love to say, in hindsight, we should have done A, B, and C to maybe get ahead of this a little bit. We thought we were on the same understanding.
But you think that people are going to do what they say?
Sure,
and be reasonable?
And I can't speak for Innovative, right? That's not my role here. But we have done what we can to get under contract with them other land. And part of that has been an additional obligation outside of the development agreement that we're committing, that we're taking on to make sure that this does happen on a timely basis. We obviously recognize that the city has an interest in making Juniper Crest happen. We recognize that it's probably a little hard to swallow politically to say, yeah, we're going to agree to some dog park name where we've never done that in the past. And so we're just asking that the city continue to look at us as the ones in the room that can still make everything happen in a timely way with regard to getting Juniper Crest in, getting the rest of the park improvements in. And I should say and clarify that the portion of the dog park that we're talking about is not all of the dog park, right? There's still a portion that we own, that we're going to improve, that we're going to work with you on. And there's still Panorama Park to the south that has major improvements that we continue to work with you on outside of what we're talking about with this portion of the dog park.
Do you see any other potential barriers to getting this done? Because, it's been in the works for like a lot of years.
It has, yeah. Juniper Crest, as you guys just discussed earlier with that previous agenda item that you continued, once those property swaps happen, that's your property, right? You can do whatever you want with it. We have the obligation to go in and finance and build that. And this is really the key to that. It's the gating issue. And I'm not using that as a way to say that should be the driver for your decision, because I know you have a lot of other considerations and policy factors that you take into account. But it's important to us, right? And we have communicated with you as a council along the whole way that we want to get Juniper Crest done. We don't need it right out of the gate, but we also recognize the benefit that it brings to the community and to our project by doing that. And so it's an important issue to us as well.
So this is a deal killer for them? If they don't get to do the dog park, they're not going to do the deal?
No, I don't think it is. They've been actually great to work with. And as you know, there are like 12 different property owners that are part of this MDA. And it has been hard as the master developer trying to meet every different interest that exists out there. And it's not our position to say that their property interest or their perspectives are right or wrong, right? We're trying to balance all of those. And so they've actually been great to work with. And it is frustrating. I think everybody would admit it's a little bit frustrating that we're here. But we're trying to work through that and provide solutions to the city to the extent that we can to make it a little more palatable.
Well, it's actually really good to hear you say that they're good to work with, and this is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like this is maybe just an ask that they've sent back to you and you're bringing it to us, which my initial reaction is I generally try to choose my words pretty well, and sometimes they're emotionally charged, and that one is that feels like extortion to satisfy somebody's need, right? To hold this up, you need my signature, this is what I want. Hopefully it's maybe more along the lines of what you're describing of, it doesn't hurt to ask. And if that's the case, then I don't feel as emotionally revolted by just the ask. I think the point of, what best case, worst case, we say no, best case is go back, that's just not gonna fly, and hopefully they're amenable and are reasonable and move on, and there isn't really any delay. I mean, that's best case. Worst case, that's why I like sitting next to the attorney. He might not like it, is I get to lean over and say, I'm gonna ask you what the worst case is. The worst case is always, all right, if they really wanna hold it up and be difficult, then there's a legal process to go through. But worst case, what is that?
Yeah, worst case, I would say that the road is under obligation from the master developer, and to effectuate the development of that, we could use eminent domain power to acquire the property and work with the master developer on what that looks like, and hopefully we could get through that as quickly as we could.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please, Wendy.
When the master developer originally designed Panorama Park, was this dog park intended to be part of that, or is it to stand on its own?
If you go to the community plan, which is an exhibit to the development agreement, it shows Panorama Park North, which is the dog park area, and Panorama Park South. We referred to it as Panorama Park, but we always knew that there were two different kind of amenity focuses with each one of those parks. And to that point, and as I mentioned earlier, Panorama Park South is still going to be Panorama Park, right? It fits with the whole theme that we've talked about. Nothing's changing there. And so this slide, can I mark on this? Or if not, that's fine. If you look, again, what Blake has kind of called out here, it's not even all of the dog park that we're talking about. It's kind of north of that circular clump of trees. So it's not even all of the dog park that is affected by the amendment that we are asking for.
Is there a proposed name, or is it just up for them to put forward, or what's?
Good question. When we originally drafted the language in the amendment, and I worked with Todd on that, it was kind of open-ended with the name, but set forth a procedure by which you would come up with that name. I actually had a phone call today with the attorney for Innovative, and he said, if the city council would accept it, their proposal would be just to have a fixed name now, or in your motion say, this is what we would approve. And that was the J. Wright Dog Park, which I think has been discussed previously as being the proposed name.
I think, well, I'm still inclined for moral and my principles to say no for all the reasons that I stated. But in the agreement where it says the city council can choose, and I would never be okay with naming it after someone.
I agree. I'm concerned about setting a precedent and then also naming it after a person. So,
especially with no charitable contribution. I mean, yeah, it just.
Agree.
I'm done. That's all I got.
and it kind of hurts me to say it because I've lived in Harriman in Juniper Point for 17 years, and we've talked about that road for years and years and years.
Right.
And
So reading this language, it says that we may approve or reject proposed name. It looks like that one would be rejected as stated. But from conversations that I've had, this would not set a precedent. Is that correct? Because it's in a MDA, or what would that look like?
Let me answer it this way. I don't think you're creating a legal precedent, but as far as the requests that come in, you may feel additional pressures.
One of the things we talked about as staff, most of these are named or they're part of MDAs that we've been dealing with, and most of our land is already tied with MDAs. There are policies out there, and perhaps we should actually adopt a formal policy. So I've had in other communities, we didn't want to name it after living people. We didn't want to have had something. And frankly, human beings being complex individuals, sometimes it's better just not to name it after people. And so if you were to move forward with this language as proposed, then I think as staff, we would probably come back with and have you adopt a council policy on how you name parks in the future. And in a lot of places, I was telling Wendy, I worked in an area where we had a large community park called Enterprise Park, but then individual pieces throughout it had different names. Sierra Pacific Industries Playground, because they paid for it. But nobody called it the Sierra Pacific Industries Park. It was just Enterprise Park. You just went there. You saw the signs as you went up, and we had a good relationship with that group. If anybody wants to do this, they've maintained that thing every year and donated money every single year. But those kinds of things. So it's kind of strange to be naming component parts of a park, but it is something we have talked about as you try to, as the cost of providing these amenities has gone up, you may have to, you look for donations, that naming. So I think a naming policy would be something we'd bring up. Even if you don't move forward with this, we probably should come up with a policy. But if you do, we would bring one.
I think we definitely had that discussion. I mean, we had a meeting about something else yesterday where we discussed that. Sponsorships are a completely different thing, right? It's not dedicating something as something in perpetuity. It's an exchange for money or donation of in-kind, et cetera, that benefits the city for a period of time. You can write those, those contracts. At least for me, I view that situation, sponsorship, as much different, and absolutely, I think we should look at those types of things.
If I can make one more plug too, I think you bring up good points that I would bring up if I was sitting where you sit, right? And so I think in the interest of Juniper Crest, right, and that's really where we as the master developer are putting a lot of our weight behind. The language is drafted currently to allow for this kind of process to work through, and Innovative isn't here tonight. They weren't able to be in attendance, but as I've stated earlier, they are good to work with. And I think if you were to approve this with the language currently drafted, it would invite them to come out and have the conversation with you, and they might be able to provide more context about why they have proposed that current name, or invite further discussion about alternative names, that might be a little more palatable to the council.
That I was done, but my response to that is that if they're good to work with, that conversation won't be necessary.
And there's nothing that prohibits them to come in and sit down with Wendy and say, hey, wouldn't this be a cool name for the dog park? You know what I mean?
I think that's how it would work, really, right?
But
We'd go there first.
And there's nothing that prohibits that. I think that there's a reason they asked for that. You named a name today, and that's probably why. They probably want a park named after that individual to carry a legacy for that piece of property. Totally understandable. I just think it's a bad precedent for us to set. I do think we're lax on a policy. No, sometimes it's because you haven't had to think about it too much, these types of things, but I just think that never want to kind of be in a corner, even if I don't want staff to have to spend 26 hours on reiterations of names either, so to be bound to that policy, so.
I'd like to mention another aspect of this that we haven't talked about. Today at my lunch, Lydia, that is the general manager at the pizza place at Mountain Mike's Pizza, they are desperate. That business district is desperate for Juniper Crest. Like, they need Juniper Crest to thrive over there. I think we're hurting our businesses by, I know this is, to me, this is a small hill to die on. I don't disagree with anything anybody's saying, but I don't know that this is the hill to die on. If this sets it back 6 months, we're hurting our businesses in that area considerably. By pushing them out, Lee's will be frustrated. It will hurt Lee's. It will hurt all those businesses over there that are relying on the Juniper people getting to that business park right now, that they go down to Rosecrest now, they hit Mountain View Corridor, and they go right or left, and they're going left right now. They're going out of our city to spend their tax dollars. And that's a major concern, I think. And 6 months doesn't seem like much, but that's, to those businesses, that is absolutely critical. So that's just one more. And with this amendment as written, we're not agreeing to let them name it with the name. This allows them to come back and propose names that we could continue to banter over, and we don't have to agree with the person.
So that's the question I had. Does the land, and maybe this is for Bryce, but does the land exchange happen with this agreement, or does it happen when the name is selected?
I think it happens at the plat, or when we make the motion, we vacate it. In my recommendation on that item is to not swap the property until it's all been approved and done. So that happens either at plat or deed whenever we do that. And then this would be separate from that. It's just, you have to get innovative signature. And so it seems like this needs to be approved to get that signature to happen on that deed or that plat.
Does the approval of a specific name for the park have to be approved to get this signature?
Just this language right here.
Okay.
Yeah, prior to dedication. So from the way I read it, and attorney is correct, this ties us to give them the opportunity to name it per the agreement of the council on the proposed name in short terms.
Not just opportunity, but gives them the right. They will name it once we agree on something.
It creates kind of equal footing to a degree, because you have ultimate discretion on the name, but they have ultimate right to name it. And so you could get caught in this tailspin where you're just, undermining each other to the point that nothing is moving forward, which I think is inherent in here and maybe intentional in the language, if I'm being honest, to encourage you to work together in good faith, right? But beyond that, it doesn't say, here's how many times that happens, or
there's no shall, there's no will, there's no, yeah.
But the road would be starting to be built while this conversation happens about the name. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that alleviates a concern for me.
So I just reiterate, the exchange and the right-of-way will be dedicated to the city, so you can start your portion building before the park is actually named.
Yeah, as long as Innovative signs their quitclaim deed conveying the property to you, right? Yes. As long as that transfer.
So that really is the key. We adopt the language as proposed. I know they proposed something else today, but this was what originally was on here. If council adopts this, then it's back on them to agree to that.
Right.
And once that's done, then we can move forward, and then
And this is the only hiccup.
Sherry, don't,
Pull out your crystal ball.
Listen,
That's the problem, always.
that's right.
Because it's like, well, what about this? And then if we say this, then it's, well, what about this?
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that this is gonna say, oh, yeah, for sure, we're gonna sign the
I
deed
would,
now.
yeah, I would love to stand here and put my hand on the Bible and say, we'll never be
Me
here
too.
again, right? Yeah, but
Yeah.
admittedly, there are times where I think an amendment to an agreement is advantageous, more for the city than it might be for the developer. There are just things that we try to plan for 600 acres and 2,000 units, and we sometimes get it wrong, right?
Well, for sure.
So, but yes, to the extent that we can, we're not coming back. You can see how much fun I'm having here right now. I'm good, yeah.
One other quick point. I mean, I know Jared says that we've just did this in November and it's been quick while you're back, but I actually think it's better to come back now rather than from a 2008 or 2009 discussion and have the same sort of discussion. So I think the speed of that.
My point on that is that we should have.
We should have saw
We
that.
should have seen it.
Yeah, we
right?
should have seen that, yeah.
But for this to be holding it up, quite frankly, is petty, in my opinion on that. And it's my words, right? On their part, that's what is very, very frustrating and really taints this whole discussion, in my opinion.
The landowner saw an opportunity and he's having that ask. I mean, I don't know if I would do it any different.
I hope that it's more what I described earlier of it doesn't hurt to ask, in which case if we say no, if they're reasonable, it shouldn't hold anything up.
But I wonder if it doesn't hurt to ask about a name, and then we say no, and then they can propose a name that's not a person.
Well, that's.
Agree, yeah.
And so.
And the roads move forward.
And that would be, I think, a different.
That's why I like this
situation.
language. That's why I like this language that's proposed and not the amendment.
Protects us from even.
I just whispered this to, I shouldn't say whispered, kind of mentioned it to Teddy. It said, so the round and round, right? So I always go best case, worst case. It's the planner in me, right? You plan for the worst and hope for the best. Well, the best is that, yep, they sign it and it gets started. Right. And then we may have a never-ending spiral of naming and maybe it never gets named and that's just fine with me, right? Or we come up with something.
Awesome name.
It's definitely not, you give them the immediate feedback, it's not going to be a name. It's not going to be anything that gives them any egotistical gratification. And maybe that helps a bit. But they could also, if we pass this, it doesn't mean it happens, right? They can still say, nah, based on their comments, they're not going to give me what I want, I'm still not going to sign, and we still go that route. So.
But
I mean,
I
you're
think
not wrong,
intentions
but
will be
yeah.
clear at that point, though, and so, yeah.
But you're not wrong, Jared, and that's why I think proving this doesn't change the direction. I mean, this.
I think it
they
might
don't
actually
agree with
speed it up.
Yeah, if
though.
they agree with it, great. If not, then they reject it and we're still back. But if they come back and are a good partner, then this has already gone and done and moving on, and but there's nothing here requiring us to do a person.
No, I just made that point. I just talked right through it, right?
Yep.
And as I mentioned earlier, we've tried with agreements outside of the scope of this development agreement to make it worth their while to participate in this. And so we're trying to do that from a master developer perspective and say we have motivations other than just what we're talking about here to make all of this work.
We appreciate your efforts and your note. We 100% understand this isn't you.
I'm prepared to make a motion, Mayor.
Let's see where this goes. Make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the first administrative modification to the Panorama Master Development Agreement per the language proposed in this amendment.
Take a motion by Teddy.
I'll second it.
I'll take a second by Tara. We'll go to a roll call vote then. We'll start with Tara.
Yes.
Sherry?
No.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared? I will vote yes. That motion carries. So 8.2 is approved, which brings us back to, by the way, that is our first 3-2 vote in 3.5 years. It's our first 3-2 vote, I think, in 3.5 years.
Usually it's 4-1. What are you talking about?
Sherry and I are slacking then.
Killing us. Okay, well, we'll go back to 6.1 at this point then. Like, do we just need one, I guess, based on that? Just need to make a motion then, now that that's, Okay, I'll look for a motion on 6.1.
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-15, vacating a portion of the public street right-of-way located at approximately 15250 South, 3750 West.
Motion by Sherry, second by Jared. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion then carries. Thank you. 8.3, assign 2 city councilors to review and approve the final changes made to the South Hills amended and restated MDA per the full council motion on November 13th. Nathan?
So, the reason I knew that last one was approved in November is because we also approved the South Hills amended and restated master development agreement that night, the ARMDA. You'll hear us use that phrase, so it's the amended and restated master development agreement. As part of that action, council will recall, we were dealing with an agreement that was, I think, originally from mid-2000s. We had a lot of old attachments and documents that were scans of scans and really difficult to read. So as we redid that agreement, they brought it forward from the 2008 general plan to the current general plan. And the direction at the council was fix the technical and design guidelines and some of the language. They'd done a lot before that meeting, but in order for them to move forward, we said they could move forward, but we wanted some of that language cleaned up. They were directed to work with the planning staff on that. As part of the motion, council said, as long as the city attorney, the city manager, and 2 councilors who are appointed agree, then we would just be good. We're not renegotiating, we just want to make sure we're all good with that language. At this time, both the city attorney and I have reviewed it. It looks good. I think at that time there were not councilors appointed. The idea in November was that it would be Councilor Shields and somebody. Councilor Shields is gone, no longer here as a councilor. So we're looking at staff because the motion said you would appoint. It's not up to staff to appoint. We're looking for you to direction. You can appoint 2. You could also change that and say, as long as we're both good with it, you don't have to read it. I did not attach it. It's 120 pages long because it wasn't bring it back to council to all look at it. If anybody wants it, I'm happy to share it, but it is 120 pages of some red lines. Not all those. That's how long it is with the red lines. I think when it's cleaned up, it's like 80 pages. There's just a lot of little formatting that we were cleaning up from the 2008 agreement. Todd, I'll look at the city attorney if he had any other specific things that were changed, but it's a lot of formatting.
No, we had about eight or so comments in the motion of things that we need to specifically change. So they made the changes. Nathan and I reviewed them. They looked consistent, but there were some things in the design guideline, like Nathan saying that it was just outdated, not really workable. So that was cleaned up as well. So nothing outside of what the motion was made, but yeah, I didn't see any issues with the current draft that we reviewed.
I nominate Sherry and Lauren.
No.
Why did I get nominated? Did I?
You're so good at those, Sherry.
And did the planning staff
It'll be the
look
last
over
one
it
you
too?
ever do, Sherry.
Yeah, so the back and forth, the reason it took so long, is my understanding, is that they were working with planning staff on trying to clean up the design guideline piece. So the motion within the MDA, there were those things that we included and changed. But then in those design guidelines from, again, the original agreement was 2008. I think this is the 6th amendment. So we're restating everything, but those previous 5 amendments were attachments, and so they were trying to make sure that all those language, all that stuff that you've already approved actually showed up in the body now instead of having to go through it and then look back to other agreements. So planning did play along. I don't know how the back and forth went. I wasn't involved in that part. I just know I got this about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now and said, hey, we're done. And then I went back to the motion, read it, and thought, oh, this is good. And then I read the motion that you're supposed to have 2 people. So
just 120 page of light reading. Great, thank you for that nomination.
I'm happy to do it. I've started to do it with Nathan anyway, so.
Yeah, I can help too. It's fine.
How much time commitment did we have on that from, what, okay.
Years and years and years.
Well, I know that, but I'm just talking about the last 8 months.
For me personally, it's been about 15 years now.
Yeah, there was probably quite a bit of planning staff time just with the back and forth.
Actually not a joke.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And we can't, there's no way to capture that or bill for that or,
What does that consist of? Do you just need us to just review it? You're
So
gonna send it to
I will send you the red line version.
Okay.
And most of those red lines are, most of them are, hey, change this one word here. They're really in those technical. In the actual body of the MDA is where you see the 8 that we did. And I'm trying to remember, I should have pulled them all up. Well, I did, I put them here. So we had to clarify who was doing the open space. They had to follow our master plan. So all these things that are in the staff report are in there. And then a lot of I think it was the technical guidelines or design guidelines that took the longest to get through. And if you look at the original agreement, some of them are just illegible. You cannot, they were scans of scans of scans, and we couldn't read them anymore. So essentially they recreated those and made them applicable to today instead of 2008.
I'm happy to do it, but I need to kill a tree, I know, but will you print them for me?
Yeah.
It's just easier for me
Me too.
to.
I'll volunteer because I'm the one who made those motions. And yeah, I've been involved with it the longest, and probably if there's any dead bodies, I probably know where they are.
Do you each
I'll nominate.
You each want a printed copy?
It's just easier for me to review it, yeah.
I agree with you.
All right, so I nominate Sherry and Jared.
Second.
Make that a
Can I s-
motion.
Oh, you did that.
I'll make a motion to nominate Sherry and Jared.
I have a s-
Second.
Motion by Teddy, second by Jared. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries.
And may I just say thank you to staff for doing that. I remember seeing that agreement in the packet, and it was really hard to read. And so,
Yeah. For many years, it's been hard to read every reiteration of it. So.
Okay, well, that brings us to the close of our meeting tonight. We do not have a closed tonight, so future meetings, a planning commission meeting is Wednesday at 7 o'clock, 16th. Our next council meeting is not until August 13th at 7 o'clock. Upcoming events, Hungry Harriman, Farmers, and it's not in the farmer's market, Hungry Harriman on Monday. There's also Yeti in the Park Monday at Juniper Canyon.
Yes.
There's also a concert in the park, though, here
Yes.
by Friends of Harriman with the Andy Browning Band. Andy's phenomenal. And there's, on the 21st, there's a Hungry Harriman with the market and a foam party. And then another Hungry Harriman on the 28th. And
Our truth and taxation is August 13th.
so our Truth and Taxation is with the next council meeting. Thank you. The City Hall will be closed on Pioneer Day, July 24th. And with that, look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
yeah, have lots of fun.
In case you need a second copy.